First, let's create a web server. In GCP's console, go to Marketplace and search for IIS. We want to select the top option here, which is IIS Microsoft on Windows 2012 or 2. We are going to launch this solution, and we are going to rename this solution to be blog host. We're going to leave all of the other options as the same, and we're going to accept the terms and conditions, and we're going to launch. This VM will take a minute or two to spin up. We'll resume when it has spun up fully. Now that our VM has spun up, we're going to open up Cloud Shell and establish our bucket for storage. We're going to open up Cloud Shell. We're going to start by setting an environment variable for our location. We're going to use the gsutil command to create a bucket in the location that we are. We're going to name our bucket the project ID, which is this up here. Now that we have made our bucket, we are going to copy some contents into our bucket. So the first step is to download a file from a public bucket. We are now going to copy that file, which is in our project folder, into our newly created bucket. And finally, we're going to change the permissions on the file to make it publicly viewable. Okay, so we have copied down our content from a public repository. We have uploaded our PNG file to our own bucket that we created a moment ago. And we have changed permissions on that file to make it publicly viewable. So if we go back to our products and services menu, and we get into storage and browser, we can see there is our bucket there. And if we click into it, we can see that there is our PNG, and we can see that it is publicly accessible. Now that we have verified that, we can close down the Cloud Shell, and we're going to return to our products and services menu, and we are going to go to SQL. And we're going to create a new SQL instance. And we're going to select SQL Server. We're going to call our SQL Server BlogDB. We're going to give it a password. I'm going to give it a very simple password. We're going to set it to the same region. I'm going to leave it as any zone. And we're going to create. And this will take a couple of minutes to actually spin up, so we'll resume when it has spun up fully. Now that our SQL Server has spun up fully, we're going to go into it, and we're going to do two things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a user. And I'm going to call my user blog host user. And I'm going to set, again, a very simple password. And we're going to go create. And we're going to wait for this to be created. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go and create a new connection. So we click on connections. And we're going to go into add network. I'm going to give our network a name of web frontend. And we're going to give our network our IP address from our IIS server and /32. And we're going to click done. And we're going to click save. And we're going to wait for this connection to be made. This will take a minute or two. Okay, our connection has been added. Now that we have our bucket created and we've added our image into our bucket and we've created our SQL Server and we have added in our user and our connectivity to our IIS web server, what we want to do is put everything together. So we're going to go back to our products and service menu. We're going to go down to Compute Engine. And we're going to go to VM instances. And we are going to RDP into this. We have now connected to our IIS server. So what we want to do here is we want to open up PowerShell. I'm going to open it as administrator. And the first thing we're going to do in PowerShell is we're going to add in the command for installing Chocolatey. This command is going to install the Chocolatey package manager. And now it's installed, I'm going to run the command for actually installing. This command here will install Web Platform Installer. It'll take a moment or two to install. Now that the Web Platform Installer has installed, it opens itself automatically, and we're going to search for PHP. And we want to select two options in this PHP. We're going to select our drivers. And we want to actually select our PHP as well, which is going to be 7.2. The easier way of doing this is this. And I want the 64-bit version. And now we're going to click install. And we're going to accept the terms and conditions. And this will take a couple of minutes to install. Now that all of the pieces of PHP software have been installed, we can click finish and we can click exit. And from our PowerShell, we are going to open up Notepad. I'm going to spell it correctly. And we're going to create an incredibly simple PHP file. We're going to save this as our PHP file, but we're going to save it in a certain location. So we're going to go to the root drive. We're going to go to Intelpub. We're going to go to www.root, and here we're going to save test.php. And we're going to save it. We're now going to go and open up a browser window to test this. So we're going to take our IP address of our blog host. We're going to go to the IP address /test PHP. And we can see that we have our PHP information, so we can verify that PHP has been installed correctly. So now what we want to do is we want to use that PHP installation to allow us to connect to our database. So I'm going to go back to my Windows VM and I'm going to edit the file. Okay, so here's our new PHP file. I need to update some of this. So the first thing I need to do here is I need to update my password. And as you can see, my password is very, very basic. Normally you would not store your password in a PHP file in plain text, but for the purposes of this demonstration, it's fine. We then also need to edit our server name here to be the IP address of our SQL server. So we'll replace this with the actual IP address. And we will save. And if we now return back to our web browser and we refresh the page, we'll now see that we get welcome to my excellent blog and we get connection established. If our connection wasn't working, we'd get a list of error messages out here. Okay, so we have created a web server. We've installed PHP on it, and we've created a very simple PHP page and verified it's working. We've created a SQL server, and we've established a connection between our PHP and our web server and the SQL Server database, which are hosted on two separate VMs. The last thing that I want to do is I want to drag in some content from the bucket that we created earlier on and combine this into the other two elements that we have inside our PHP page. So I'm going to return back to my code, and I've added in this line here, which is going to pull the image from our Google Storage bucket, and we are going to add it in just below the header. So I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to return to our web browser. And if we refresh the page one last time, we should see that we have our image, we have our header for our web page, and we have the connection established through our PHP code. We have now completed the objectives for this lab.